Hi, Park here. Just a quick program note that I have some bonus content at the end of this show with today's guest that you're not going to want to miss. Now, she didn't share this insight until after we stopped recording this particular episode, and I just knew you'd want to hear it. So I fired up Squadcast again and captured it just for you. Welcome to the Business of Story, the show dedicated to helping you excel through the stories you tell. I'm Park Howell, and I'm available to you and your teams for in-person or virtual storytelling masterclasses and mastery courses. Learn more at businessofstory.com. Bam! I am so happy you are here with us today because we are going to share with you how a top sales strategist found her brand story and separated herself from the hordes of undifferentiated sales consultants to design her own unbeatable market category. But it all started when she had to shift her perspective about what makes a great story for sales and how to tell it.
So one thing with these companies that are so technical is they're so focused on their products, right? And so everything they do, they want it to be product. And so I always try to help them understand that no one cares about you. Right? No one cares about you. And if people they don't actually care about you, you have to make them care about you. So we use storytelling to help them understand that, hey, okay, like you taught us, Park, make them the hero of the story.
Wesleyne Greer, founder of Transformed Sales, is a former chemist and now a superstar sales strategist specifically for STEM companies. STEM in the academic world, as you probably know, stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. As you'll hear, Wesleyne has swapped math for manufacturing, given that her sales coaching specializes in companies, including manufacturers that service the STEM industry. But it wasn't too long ago, like at the beginning of this year, Wesleyne was looking for her core differentiated position in the very crowded marketplace of sales strategists and consultants. That's when she realized her love of chemistry, the scientific process, and sales strategy all came together to help her become the go-to resource for promising STEM companies to grow their revenue. Today, you'll learn how she focused her brand story to stand for something she cares about that really makes her overall brand stand out. You're going to learn about how Wesleyne uses storytelling to coach her teams, and as promised, her bonus content on how she uses the ABT as a powerful sales listening tool. All that and more right here for you on this special edition of the Business of Story with Wesleyne Greer. Wesleyne, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Park.
You and I got a chance to get acquainted, about 6 months ago during our spring Build a Better Brand Story Sprint. And like so many people that have been on my show lately, I have Alice Hyman to thank to connect us because we had quite a dynamic crowd of women sales leaders in that particular sprint, and you were one of them.
Yes, we're a dime a dozen, and so we like to come together and learn professionally because we believe in training and teaching. And so one of the key elements is we're lifelong learners. So when the opportunity was presented to me, I was excited.
So tell us a little bit about your background in sales strategy and coaching. Where did you grow up? How did you get into it? When did you find out that, you're pretty doggone good at this sales thing?
So I'm actually a chemist by trade. I worked at a company where we did what they call failure analysis for plastics. And what I found myself doing was every time the salespeople would go out and see customers and come back, I would be asking them questions like, why? What are you guys doing? What are you working on? And so I found myself getting into sales. And I tell people when I got into sales, I finally figured out what I wanted wanted to be when I grew up. And because of my love and my passion for it, I did everything I possibly could to really become excellent at sales. And I read books, I did podcasts, I went to training. And because of that, I made a fast ascent from individual contributor to international sales manager. And as an international sales manager, all of that training and all of those books and all the knowledge that was there for me as a new salesperson wasn't there as a sales manager. So it's like I was dropped in the middle of the ocean and told to figure out how to swim. And so I figured it out. I figured out how to swim. I figured out how to hire the best people and get everyone on the team to hit quota each and every month. And so a few years ago, I decided that my passion was teaching other sales managers, whether they're brand new or they're out there in the ocean and they're floundering, really how to build those strong teams and helping them understand the behaviors needed to drive building quota.
So what got you into chemistry in the first place? So as a young lady, you must have been coming up through high school and whatever, and something about chemistry really attracted you. What degree did you get, and what kind of chemistry were you practicing before you went into sales?
So funny story is I actually really liked math. And so when I was in college, I went to a really small school in Mississippi. They didn't have any engineering degrees, and I didn't like physics. I just like math, right? And so when I was out there and I was exploring all the different majors, I was like, okay, chemistry seems to be a bit more of a practical application. And at that time, I was like, what can I actually do with a math degree? Like, what can you do with a degree in math? And so that I actually decided to become a chemist right in college. That was the major that I selected right off the bat. And what I did in the field is I was what they call an analytical chemist. So that means that I would go and so they would bring all of the problems, right? I would get all the problems, things that happened out in the field, broken this or broken that, or this isn't working. And I had to figure out what was wrong with it and recommend the path forward.
And how do you think your love of math and how it brought you into this analytical chemistry translated over to sales? Because you said earlier that once you got into sales, you found your true love. So I'm kind of curious why you didn't maybe see that early on, or did it just take you being around salespeople to go, there's that, and how does your chemistry background play into it?
So my first step into sales, I actually was selling what they call capital equipment. So it was literally, they were the instruments that I was using in the lab. And so I got to sell them. So I say that I finally figured out what I wanted to be when I grew up, because all of the things that would go through my brain, like, why are we actually doing this? I got to tell people, hey, the reason why you need to use this instrument is because this is what you're going to figure out. This is how you're going to do it. And so what I found getting into sales is it's really, you're just educating people. You're just really teaching them and you're helping them solve problems. Whereas a chemist, that's what I was doing. I was solving problems just in a completely different scale.
Interesting. So you are exactly right. The best salespeople seem like they're problem solvers. They're not selling something. They're just helping find a solution for something that customer has, which happens to be your product or service.
Exactly. That's all sales is. I want to break the misnomer of sales is sleazy, sales is hard. You just talk all the time in sales. That's not what it is. As a salesperson, you're really helping a person solve a problem. You're a diagnostician, if we really get down to it.
So tell us the story about Andy, the PhD chemist who hated sales, and how you saw that as being a major problem in selling if you hate sales.
Yes. So back in 2016, I worked with a company, and this company was full of PhD chemists. The person who hired me, his name was Andy, and he said in our first meeting, he said, "Wesleyne, I hate sales." So I was like, well, you hate sales, but you're the head of the sales department. Like, that's what you are. You're the VP of sales. How can you hate it? And he was like, I just feel slimy and I feel sleazy and I feel like I'm forcing someone to do something. right? And so I asked him, I said, why? Why do you feel that way? And he really gave me his personal experience that he had dealt with in dealing with salespeople in the past. And so what I had to do was I really had to help him understand, just kind of like I told you, that as a salesperson, you're just solving a problem. So when we go and we sit in front of a customer, we understand what's ailing them. We understand the problems that they're having, and all you're doing is solving the problem. So what I had to help him do, and what I do with most of the people that I work with very technical people, is I help them switch their mindset to let them know that, hey, you're not a salesperson. You're switching someone's mindset. I'm trying to switch your mindset. I'm trying to convince you that you're solving someone's problem as you're trying to convince somebody else that they have a problem that you want to solve. And really, once that light bulb went off in his head, he was off to the races.
Yeah, because there's just much more, gratitude for yourself when you feel like you're out helping someone, solving a problem versus selling them something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, one of the issues that people have when they think about sales, and then even as you become a sales manager, you're still selling, right? But you're not necessarily selling a product. You're selling an idea. You're selling your way of leading. You're selling your coaching. You're selling to the people that are on your team, and you're also selling up. And so really, when you have to change the paradigm of what sales means to you, that's what really helps you become an excellent manager or excellent at sales.
Well, isn't that the truth, though? I mean, everybody is in sales in some aspect of their life, whether you're trying to sell your kid on eating their peas, to selling your church congregation on following you on a fundraiser because you're heading that up, to selling your internal teams at a company to get involved in an initiative that could have a big impact on the bottom line, to working with buyers and prospects and customers to sell them something that is going to fix their problem.
Absolutely. Every person in an organization is a salesperson, whether you're answering the telephone, you're in operations. And the thing is, at the end of the day, sometimes your customers are internal and sometimes they're external, right? If I'm in operations, I'm selling to the salesperson, right? I have to sell them, hey, our lead time is going to be 4 to 6 weeks. Let me help you understand why this is going to be okay and why this benefits your client, right? And so when you go into a situation or you're in your company and you think about, I serve, I don't sell, right? So serve before selling. That's a motto that I like people to really have in their mind. Serve before selling.
I like that. Serve before selling. So we're going to talk just a minute about how you use storytelling in your coaching and even in your sales. But let's first talk about selling you, Wesleyne Greer, and how we got acquainted in the Build a Better Brand Story Sprint. You came in and, we identified as we're all the ladies there, actually. They were all sales coaches in one way, shape, or form, but you were all part of, hundreds of thousands of sales coaches out there. So how do you differentiate people, yourself in a very, very, very crowded market? And we all know the answer to that is to niche down, to find something that you're truly passionate about, that one thing that you can really own. And as we started with everybody, they would explain who they are and what they did, and it was all kind of convoluted. No one showed up and had it dialed in. You dialed yours in probably the quickest out of everyone else. Would you mind taking our listeners through that process? Because I think they can learn if they're sitting there wondering, all right, how do I sell myself? What is my one thing? How do I articulate that in a story framework that's going to differentiate me from my audience, and how you did it to make that work for you?
So, one thing that I realized before I started in the sprint was I wasn't leaning on my previous experience, right? So I was a sales trainer. I was a sales coach. I said I did B2B sales or B2B training, right? But I'm a chemist. There are so few chemists out there that are actually sales trainers. So one thing that I did pretty immediately was I realized that let me focus on this technical area, right? And actually before, I think after our first session, I just started doing some Google searching. And when you search for, technical sales training, chemical sales training, engineering sales training, you just get the big generic companies. There's no one really specializing in it. So that was the first thing that I did. I realized that, hey, let me lean on the background that I have because I walk this walk, right? And so once I realized that, hey, I really want to focus on STEM areas, so science, technology, engineering, and manufacturing, it was very easy for me to say, hey, this is who I want to go after. Now, who within the company do I need to be speaking to, right? Am I speaking to the actual salespeople or am I speaking to the managers or the CEOs? And at different times, I'm speaking to different people. But essentially, I want to speak to the people who have the money, which is the CEOs, right? And so then once I identified who I was speaking to, I identified the actual market. I was like, okay, what are the problems they're having? And typically in those industries, their sales are stagnating, right? And the CEO knows that they have a lot of opportunity for growth. And so they put a sales manager in the position to grow. And it doesn't happen. They're like, why are we not growing? Why are we not building as fast as we need to do? And so that was really the key. It wasn't focusing on the whole world of everyone, not even the sales teams. It's the sales managers within these technical areas. The CEOs are upset because they've hired somebody and they're not growing. And so really what I did is I said, hey, I have this background and I utilize this background to really come up with a system that works out for you. So once I put all those little pieces of the puzzle together, it just clicked.
Isn't that interesting? You made this transformation out of chemistry into sales. You love it. You found, what you wanted to be when you grew up. And then I think this is very common. I see it all the time. We sort of divorce ourselves from our past and think this is the new me. And now I'm a part of this big crowd and I've got to differentiate myself. And yet it's the past that we need to go back to. You loved math, you loved chemistry, you got into this. So you have this discipline that most sales strategists and coaches don't have, which then led you down this road to be super, super niched into the STEM world and help these STEM companies build.
Absolutely. And I will say, that sometimes it's like, well, am I being too specific? Am I being too nichey? Right. But I've stayed the course. Right. And I can even see the people who are connecting with me now on LinkedIn or who are coming on my website. They are that audience. I'm getting those really highly technical companies because it's like, this is what I do. This is who I serve. And yeah, I have other people that come to me. I mean, I have somebody who has an insurance brokerage and they're like, okay, you seem really smart. I want you to work with me too. Right. And so I always say, if you speak to everyone, you speak to no one. And so I think that by speaking specifically to the person that I want to target, other people are being attracted to me also.
My good friend Greg Head, who was on the show a couple of weeks ago, and he's a brilliant, brilliant software marketer, high-tech marketer, and he says the best line in all this, specialists eat generalists for lunch. When you showed up to the Build a Better Brand Story Sprint, you were a bit of a generalist, but it didn't take you very long to find your specialty. And now it's like a tractor beam, isn't it? You are attracting all the right kinds of clients within that, chemistry STEM bent. However, you're also attracting smart people that say, gee, if Wesleyne can do that in the chemistry world, she can also probably do it in the financial world. And, she's got this math background as well.
Exactly.
It was just so much fun to see your brand story bloom. And of course, we use the and button there for the ABT at the very beginning of and throughout the whole Build a Better Brand Story Sprint, because it's a way to get you focused. I loved yours so much that I included you as an example in our new book. And that's our new book that I've co-written with Dr. Randy Olson called The Narrative Gym for Business. May I read your overarching ABT to our listeners?
Yes, please do.
And then we'll break it down a little bit. So Wesleyne writes, and notice how it is specific to her target audience, placing her buyer, prospect, customer at the center of the story. And it reads, quote, You are a CEO of a STEM company, and you have tremendous opportunity for growth. But sales have stagnated because your underperforming sales leader has the wrong skill set to ensure predictable revenue. Therefore, you can upskill your people to hit quota monthly through my sales leadership blueprint, developed from my knowledge of the scientific process specifically designed to help STEM companies grow.
Love
That
it.
sound about right?
I still love it. I still love it every time I hear it. It's just, I mean, and it's amazing that it's exactly who I speak to, is exactly what I do. And it's like all in a little nutshell.
And then we put it in an even littler nutshell with your tagline. What is your tagline now?
The science of selling STEM.
I love that. That is absolutely beautiful.
I know. It's just, I mean, it's so, because again, it is a science, right? And so when you put that in there, and it's kind of like that play on words, it resonates with people. The people who I'm trying to speak with, it's like, yes, the science of selling, because they all think that it's a science, it's not an art, right? Because I have to speak the language of the audience that I'm speaking to, right? This is a science, this isn't an art. Tell me what to do. Tell me 1 + 1 always equals 2. It never equals 3. And so I'm like, yeah, we can do that.
Well, and it certainly plays off your science background. And I love how you incorporated the scientific process specifically designed to help STEM companies grow. So what you know about math and chemistry and the scientific process, you simply have translated over into the selling process so that your audience can understand. It's a way for you to connect with those PhDs out there that feel slimy about selling. And you go, no, there's just a science of helping here. And that's what I'm about.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And again, it's speaking the customer's language. I think that so often one thing that I found is like you're talking about yourself, you're using words that resonate with yourself, but using words that resonate with your audience, that ensures that, hey, they're reading something and it clicks with them immediately because they're like, oh, yeah, I know about the scientific process. Yeah, that's what we do. And I tell people that as a chemist, it's my brain. I'm process oriented. So literally when I say that I have a process, it's because that's what I think about. I think about you have to do this, then you have to do this, then you have to do that. Yeah, sometimes we make left and right turns, but if we don't have a flow, if you don't have something that you can hand to a salesperson on day one and say, follow this, then they're never going to be successful.
Absolutely. Now, let's go through and break down your ABT a little bit, and then we'll get into talking about how you are using it in your sales presentations and how you are coaching coaches on how to use stories to really connect with an audience. So at the very beginning, I love the fact that you identified your core audience. You are a CEO of a STEM company. That is who you are going to. And in your "and" statement of agreement, you're staying positive. You're saying this is the kind of future that you want to get them nodding. And you have tremendous opportunity for growth. So it's all positive. You're validating who they are and what it is they want to demonstrate that you understand what's at stake for them in their journey. Now you introduce that all-important but word. Here's the contradiction. Here's the conflict. And this but word is so important because it triggers the limbic system that now we have a change in plot. Something has happened which is going to beg the question, how do we solve for it? So, but sales have stagnated because your underperforming sales leader has the wrong skill set to ensure predictable revenue. Now, that's a pretty bold but statement. You're underperforming sales leader. How does that work for you? And do you ever worry, Wesleyne, that you may upset people when telling this? Or are you okay because you're just speaking the truth?
I'm just speaking the truth, right? I needed to resonate with a specific audience, right? When I tell a CEO that you're underperforming sales leader, they're shaking their head because they're like, yeah, they're not doing what they need to do. They may not have said it out loud, but I'm going for that gut punch of this is actually what is happening within my organization. This is actually what I feel. And so she's saying it. And so that is the key for me. I want them to understand that I know exactly what you're going through. And if it's too much for you, that means that we may not be the right fit because I'm very direct. Like I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to tell the sales manager exactly what the problems are. and let's just how we fix it.
And I placed that story earlier about Andy, the PhD, who's the head of sales and is saying, I hate sales. So as we learn in the discovery of your backstory and the people you helped during the Build a Better Brand Story Sprint, you said, these sales managers are good people. They mean well. They typically are scientists that don't have the sales training. They're very good in their scientific realm. And so they get promoted into this sales manager realm, and it's not their fault. They don't know how to perform in that because they've never been adequately taught, especially from the sales bent, from their brain mindset, and that's where you come in. So that's a real key lever, I think, too. It's not that you're throwing these people under the bus. It's you say, let's skill them. Let's upskill them so that they can be successful.
Right. It's the thing they don't know. Right. And the problem is with them not knowing is what they do is they build a sales team of people who are just like them that don't have a clue either. And so it's like they keep going down this trajectory and they keep going downhill. And until a manager says, hey, I see your potential, I want to develop you, that's when we really have progress. And so at the end of the day, when I'm out there and I'm speaking to these CEOs, I want the ones who are progressive. I don't want the ones who say, get rid of them and find me somebody else. I want the ones who say, I've invested time in this person. I know that they have it and I haven't given them everything that they need. And that's something that I often ask a CEO or even a sales manager if they're about to fire somebody. I say, okay, I want you to take a moment and think. Have you given this person 150% to develop them? And most times the answer is no, right? And so at the end of the day, I'm like, well, can we at least try? Let's give them a chance.
That's the beautiful part of the ABT. It helps you put your prospects through what I call the rigid and frigid test. If they know their sales aren't working and they are so frigid about that person, they're like, off with their heads, let's get them out of here, there's no humanity there, then they're probably not the right customer for you or maybe anyone listening to this show, no matter what you're selling. Mm-hmm. Or if they are so rigid, Wesleyne, we've never done it that way before, or I just can't see that working, that they are so rigid in their approach that they're probably not going to work out as a customer for you too. So that's what I love about the ABT. When you get it really dialed into your brand story, you can now use it to filter your prospects and buyers through the rigid and frigid test, just as you had explained there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then, of course, it all comes down to your wonderful tagline, the science of selling STEM. So now that you're in there and you're coaching and you're helping these STEM companies, how are you using storytelling and teaching them how to use storytelling to help advance their own people?
So one thing with these companies that are so technical is they're so focused on their products, right? And so everything they do, they want it to be product. And so I always try to help them understand that no one cares about you. Right? No one cares about you. And if people they don't actually care about you, you have to make them care about you. So we use storytelling to help them understand that, hey, okay, like you taught us, Park, make them the hero of the story. Help them understand what they're doing great, what they're doing excellent, what they're not doing so good, and how you can then help them, right? And so when you're on a cold call or you're prospecting or even in a discovery call, you're listening for those things and you're reflecting back what the person is saying to you. And by reflecting back what you hear, that's how they're like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's exactly what's happening within our organization. Yeah, that's exactly the problem that we're experiencing in the field, right? And so that's how we've been able to weave the storytelling into what we do. Make it about the customer. Make the customer the star of the story.
Wesleyne, have you found the ABT to be a very powerful listening tool for you as well? So as they are telling you their story of what's happening, you are filtering it through an ABT. And then when you say, here's what I've heard, you simply tell it back to them, placing them at the center of the story. Here's what they want, and here's why it's important, but they don't have it because of this currently. Therefore, here's how I believe I can help you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So depending on where we are in the discovery call or what we're doing, a lot of times we use the AB, right? Because I want to make sure we heard you, we made you the star, but this is the problem. And then towards the end of that discovery call, then we start peppering in the us, right? The therefore, the why we can actually help you. Just because, again, in a strong discovery call, when we're working with prospects, we want to make sure that it's really all about them and we don't insert ourselves too much, because really salespeople, they just want to go into product knowledge so quick. And so I have to rein them back and say, no, you can't start talking about product yet. And so we, like I said, we use the AB, and then towards the end, we use the full ABT to make sure that they understand this is how we can actually help you.
Well, in the scientific process, math, chemistry, you can't just leap to a conclusion, right? You have to have a hypothesis. You have to then test that hypothesis. In some areas, it'll work. In other areas, but it won't work. And then once you have that A-B knowledge down, you're able to go, therefore, we feel like this might be the most appropriate solution.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like you said, it's my brain is process oriented. So it's like, okay, this is how I chop it up.
I've never thought about the ABT that way as the scientific process. Now I'm going to have to bounce that off of Randy Olson because, of course, he's an evolutionary biologist. I'm sure he's thought about it. He's the gentleman that introduced me to the ABT 10 years ago, my co-author of the book. But it follows that beautiful scientific process. How have you used it coming out of the Build a Better Brand Story Sprint? You had first learned about the ABT, and then you applied it immediately in a presentation you were doing to a large gathering, as I recall. Can you refresh my memory of what that was and how that went down?
Yes. So as I was doing the Build a Better Brand Story Sprint, I had already signed up to be I was asked to speak on diversity in the plastics industry. And so I was really able to use ABTs throughout my presentation to help the audience understand, like, hey, these are the things that we're doing really well in the plastics industry, but here are the ways that we're still not doing so well. And this is how we can fix it. And so I gave them stories. I was able to say, here are the problems, here's the statistics, and then kind of wrap it all up in a bow. And the presentation went so well that actually I think it was last month, they featured me on the cover of Plastics News on that actual topic. So it was really bringing it all together. So it's not just, using it in selling or using it with clients, but it's using it just when I'm speaking to audiences about topics that I'm passionate about.
Wesleyne, when you were studying chemistry, did you ever picture yourself on the cover of Plastics News magazine?
Absolutely not. I didn't. I really didn't. I mean, in college, our department chair, he was really big about us getting out and speaking. And so we would do research and we would go to symposiums. And so really, I think my love of public speaking and presenting my ideas to people started then. But I have those, little symposium booklets, but never would I have thought that I'd be on the cover of Plastics News.
That's great. And you're on it not only for your background in chemistry and math, but for your sales, what you are now doing in the STEM world and promoting diversity in chemistry and STEM and the plastics world, apparently.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So what's next for you?
What's next for me? I would say that, right now my goal is to, and to put it in the simplest terms, replicate myself. So I'm trying to really grow the business and have other people that have the same ability to dissect problems like I do and coach others up. Because right now, I think that's the thing that's preventing me from truly growing, right? I can hire salespeople to sell, I can hire operations people, but if I don't actually replicate the product, me, then I am not able to fully grow. So I would say that is the goal right now. And I'm process oriented. So I've already begun the curriculum process, the onboarding process of what that looks like for the next coaches and trainers that come behind me.
How much did your experience in discovery process and your crafting of your ABT, your position statement, your tagline from the Build a Better Brand Story Sprint, how much has it informed what you're doing now? And even looking at the beginning of the year, How different is it in mindset from where you were headed, direction from where you were headed to now replicating yourself, your process to grow, to expand your impact in the world?
So I would say it really helped a lot because, it's always, like I said, it's like that scarcity mindset. Should I niche down? Should I not niche down? Should I do this? Should I do that? Who am I speaking to? Do I need to say I'm targeting companies that are $10 to $100 million or everybody in the whole wide world, right? And so I think that really getting that clarity and understanding, hey, this is what is important. This is where I can impact the audience. I can impact. That has really helped propel the trajectory of the business. And knowing that, hey, in order to move to the next step, in order to grow, I have to take everything that's in my head and really put it out there and help other people understand this is a process. These are the things you need to do. And, the other day I got an inquiry and I always ask people, how did you find me? They're like, oh, I typed in sales training chemical on Google. That's how I found you. Right. And so it's literally on my website, right? On the website, we're using ABTs to really speak about what we do and how we can help people. And we're speaking specifically to our audience.
That is so awesome. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking about the problem that I helped you solve, and it just makes me feel great. And you are like this poster child for the ABT and branding and getting your story so dialed in that you've got this focus that will now help you in all of your sales. And it actually goes beyond just helping you in attracting customers. You can use it to teach them how to use the ABT, how to work within their sales program. So it's very meta. It just becomes an extension and an expression of who you are and what you stand for.
Absolutely. Like I said, it was right in the middle of the year. And so I feel like it was kind of like a trajectory that kind of turned a spigot on for me.
That's fantastic. Wesleyne, where can people learn more about you and see your work in action?
I'm very active on LinkedIn. If you like my straight shooter, the methodology, you'll find lots of articles and videos and everything out there on LinkedIn. It's Wesleyne Greer. And I know you'll probably pop it in the show notes or on my website, transformsales.com.
And you've got a podcast too, you do.
Oh, yes, I do. I always forget my pod. I don't know why do I always forget the podcast? I do. It is called Snack Sized Sales. And so again, there are not a lot of programs or training or anything out there for technical salespeople. So my podcast is 100% focused on interviewing sales managers, CEOs of these STEM-based companies that have come up through the ranks of sales. So they started as a salesperson or a scientist, and now they're a sales manager or a CEO. And they give actionable tips on how they were able to build their business, how they were able to step up the ladder. So snack size sales.
That is so cool. And I guess you can find that on any and all podcast platforms that people can go to.
Every platform. You can also find it on the website, transformsales.com/podcast.
Awesome. Wesleyne, thank you so much for your time today. I just love your energy, and I am so excited for you and how dialed in your story is now and how the ABT is working for you out there.
Thank you so much, Park. It was such a pleasure chatting with you, and thank you for all your help dialing in my ABT.
Happy to do it. And thank you all for listening to this edition. If you liked what you heard and you know someone that could benefit from the short instruction we gave on the ABT and how it has helped Wesleyne dial in her story, then by all means share this episode with them. If I can help you, I've got a very quick course on Thinkific. And I was talking to someone the other day, Wesleyne, they didn't even know what Thinkific was. And I'm so close to it. I thought everybody knew the Thinkific learning platform, but apparently they don't. However, you as a listener can now go and apply the ABT in your sales if you go to businessofstory.thinkific.com, or you can go through the Business of Story website and click on it there. And I'll teach you in under 18 minutes through 3 short videos how to use the and, but, therefore foundational narrative framework in all of your communication, but certainly to use it to first dial in your brand story, and then in your sales prospecting, sales listening, story listening, and your presentations. And of course, we've got the companion book that goes with that, the Narrative Gym for Business, that will take you in an even deeper dive into the ABT, 75-page guide. It's a quick read, but it's something to have by your side as you are crafting your own ABTs. And then I don't know if I'll be doing a Build a Better Brand Story Sprint within the next month, but maybe within the next 2 months. I do them sporadically. If you are interested in going through this very quick 3-week, 6 live session process with me and 9 other folks to help dial in your brand story and learn how to tell it, then shoot me a note over at park@businessofstory.com. Let me know if you are interested in doing that. And if we get enough of those, I will put together a 10-person cohort session, and we will do a Build a Better Brand Story Sprint for you. So by the end of this year, kicking off next year, you will have your story totally dialed in like Wesleyne does. Until next week, when I will have another story artist right here for you like Wesleyne, remember that the most potent story you'll ever tell is the story you tell yourself. So make it a great one, and thank you so much for listening. I'm so glad you didn't turn off the show quite yet, because when we finished the show, Wesleyne and I started chatting, and she gave me a brilliant little insight that I said, let's record that and just give it as a little bonus at the end of the show. Now, something she had said in her discovery call really rung true with me, and it was the first time I'd ever heard it, but I didn't really talk about it in the show. And that is, she doesn't use an ABT in that discovery call as the listening tool. She said she uses the A and the B, the A and the B, the A and the B, because it keeps it about them. I want this, but I don't have it because of this. And it would be great if I could do this, but I don't have it because of this. And it would be really cool if I did this, but, And so she goes through that A, B, A, B, A, B before she even begins to think about the T. Therefore, here's how we can solve that. But Wesleyne, you then shared with me a very powerful thing about showing up with questions for that discovery call. Can you share that with our listeners?
Yes. So many times salespeople have this script. They have all these questions, all these things that they want to know about the actual prospect, about the buyer. And the problem with that is it's too focused on you. Remember, no one cares about you. So when you show up to a discovery call, you have one question. And that one question is you need to get your buyer thinking about what some of the problems, some of the pain, some of the issues that they're having within their organization. So for me, I might show up and I might say something like, hey, can you tell me a little bit more about your sales team? Park may say, I'm curious, tell me what you guys are currently doing for marketing, right? And based on the way that they answer that question, it's going to give you so much insight. And your next question is based on what you heard, right? And this is not like a firing squad. So I say, hey, tell me a little bit more about your sales team. They talk. And I use my AB. Okay, so you're doing this really well and this really well, but this isn't working. So why is it not working, right? And so it's whatever that but is, that's your next question. That is how you conduct a discovery call, just like that.
Well, and the therefore is the so. So yes. What are you doing about it? You're keeping the ABT from the point of view of your prospect. I want this, and it's important because of this, but I don't have it because of this. Then you insert the so what are you doing about it? It leads to that question. Very interesting.
Exactly. There it is. So it is an ABT. It's just a different kind of ABT. So what are you doing about it? What have you done to resolve it in the past? And the thing is that your therefore should be at the end. So if you have, let's say, a 30-minute discovery call, you really don't want to start talking about yourself or your products until the last 5 to 7 minutes. And you're like, oh my goodness, really? Because it needs to be about the person. And so at the end of that discovery call, then you start using that true ABT where you're inserting, hey, this is the value proposition. This is what I bring to the table. And what you want to do is you want to ask. That is when you get your permission to ask for the next meeting. And here's another tip. Do not do your discovery and your demo or proposal in the same meeting. Why? Because it should be based on what they need. It's not just some random thing of all of these things that I want to do or I want to hear. And so you ask permission at the end of that discovery meeting. And when you're asking permission for the next meeting, you want to make sure that everybody who needs to be in the room is in the room.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that. It was just such valuable information that you and I were chatting about. I wanted to capture it for the rest of our listeners. Thanks for doing that for us, Wesleyne.
You're most welcome. Always happy to chat.